And the next sutta is 8.2.11. Once the exalted one was dwelling near Varanja at the foot of Naliru's Nimba tree. There came to him a Brahmin of Varanja, who after exchanging the usual complimentary greetings sat down at one side. So seated, the Brahmin spoke thus to the exalted one. Master Gotama, I have heard that the recluse Gotama neither salutes nor rises up for, nor offers a seat to venerable and aged Brahmins who are ripe in years, old and have attained to seniority. And this is precisely the case, Master Gotama. Master Gotama does not salute venerable and aged Brahmins. This is not right, Master Gotama. And the Buddha said, Brahmin, I see no one in the world of gods with its Maras and Brahmas, or in the world of mankind with its recluses and Brahmins, Devas and men, whom I should salute, rise up for, or to whom I should offer a seat. Moreover, Brahmin, whom the Tathagata should salute, rise up for, or to whom he should offer a seat, verily his head would split in two. And the Brahmin said, Master Gotama lacks taste. And the Buddha said, this is the reason, Brahmin, by which one would be right in saying, the recluse Gotama lacks taste. Brahmin, taste for forms, taste for sounds, taste for smells, taste for flavors, and taste for things tangible, these are abandoned by the Tathagata, cut off at the root, made like palm tree stumps, made such that they have ceased to be, so that they cannot grow up again in the future. This is indeed the reason, Brahmin, by which one would be right in saying, the recluse Gotama lacks taste, but not forsooth in the way you mean. And the Brahmin said, Master Gotama is against enjoyment. This is the reason, Brahmin, by which one would be right in saying, the recluse Gotama is against enjoyment. Brahmin, the enjoyment of forms, the enjoyment of sounds, the enjoyment of smells, the enjoyment of flavors, and the enjoyment of things tangible, these by the Tathagata are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like palm tree stumps, made such that they have ceased to be, so that they cannot grow up again in the future. Rightly, one might say, the recluse Gotama is against enjoyment, but not in the way you mean. And the Brahmin said, Master Gotama affirms the theory of inaction. And the Buddha said, Brahmin, I declare abstinence from action in respect to misconduct in deed, word and thought. I proclaim inaction in respect of all evil and sinful conditions. Rightly, one might say, the recluse Gotama affirms the theory of inaction, but not in the way you mean. And again the Brahmin said, Master Gotama is an annihilationist. And the Buddha said, Brahmin, I declare the cutting off of lust, hatred and delusion. I proclaim the annihilation of all evil and sinful conditions. Rightly, one might say the recluse Gotama is an annihilationist, but not in the way you mean. The Brahmin said, Master Gotama feels abhorrence. And the Buddha said, Brahmin, I abhor misconduct in deed, word and thought. I abhor entertaining all evil and sinful conditions. Rightly, one might say the recluse Gotama feels abhorrence, but not in the way you mean. And the Brahmin said, Master Gotama is an abolitionist. And the Buddha said, Brahmin, I preach the doctrine of abolishing lust, hatred and delusion. I teach the Dhamma of abolishing all evil and sinful conditions. Rightly, one may say, the recluse Gotama is an abolitionist, but not in the way you mean. The Brahmin said, Master Gotama is given to mortification. And the Buddha said, Brahmin, I proclaim that evil and sinful conditions should be mortified. Yes, misconduct in deed, word and thought. Verily, whosoever has abandoned, rooted out, made like palm tree stumps, has caused not to be, has so conditioned that they rise not again, evil and sinful conditions which should be mortified. He, I say, is given to mortification. Brahmin, the Tathagata has abandoned, rooted out all such conditions. Rightly, one may say the recluse Gotama is given to mortification, but not in the way you mean. And the Brahmin said, Master Gotama is against rebirth. And the Buddha said, "This is the reason, Brahmin, by which one would be right in saying the recluse Gotama is against rebirth. Verily, whosoever has abandoned, cut off at the root for the future, descent into the womb, renewed, becoming and rebirth, he, I say, is against rebirth. The Tathagata Brahmin has so done. This is indeed the reason, Brahmin, by which one would be right in saying the recluse Gotama is against rebirth, but not in the way you mean. Brahmin, it is just as if a sitting of 8 or 10 or a dozen hen's eggs were fully set upon, fully warmed and fully made become, and of those young chicks, the one which before all the rest broke the eggshell with its spiked claws or with its beak and hatched out safely. How would you term it, the oldest, the eldest or the youngest?" One would say it was the eldest, Master Gotama. Certainly, Master Gotama is the eldest of them. Even so, Brahmin, when I, for the sake of mankind, enveloped in ignorance as it were, egg-born, had broken the eggshell of ignorance, I alone in the world was fully awake to unsurpassed and complete awakening. Verily, Brahmin, I was the eldest and the best in the world. Moreover, Brahmin, I was resolute, full of energy, active, upright, intent and not forgetful, tranquil within my being, unperturbed, collected and composed in mind. Verily, Brahmin, aloof from sense desires, aloof from unwholesome states, I entered and abode in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with delight and pleasure born of solitude. With the stilling of applied and sustained thought, I entered and abode in the second jhana, which has internal self-confidence and singleness of mind, without applied and sustained thought, with delight and pleasure born of concentration. With the fading away of delight, I entered and abode in the third jhana, equanimous, mindful and aware, and I experienced in my body the pleasure whereof the Aryans declare, the equanimous and mindful as a joyful abiding. By the abandoning of bodily pleasure and bodily pain, by the passing away of joy and grief, I entered and abode in the fourth jhana, a state of utter purity of mindfulness and equanimity, free of pain and pleasure. With heart thus serene, purified, cleansed, without blemish, devoid of defilement, supple, ready to act, firm and imperturbable, I bent the mind so that I might know and call to mind previous lives. I call to mind diverse former lives, that is to say, one birth or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 or 1,000 or 100,000, or many an age of rolling on, or many an age of rolling back, or many an age of both rolling on and rolling back. Such a one I was by name, of such a clan, of such a caste, such was my food, such my experience of weal and woe, such was the end of my life. Passing away thence, I arose in such a place. There, such was my name, such my clan, such my caste, such my food, such my experience of weal and woe, such my end. Passing away from there, I arose here. Thus many a previous life I call to mind with its circumstances and details. This Brahmin was the first knowledge attained by me in the first watch of the night. Ignorance being removed, knowledge arose. Darkness being removed, light arose. As I abode strenuous, earnest and resolute, this Brahmin was my first hatching, like a young chicks from the eggshell. With heart thus serene, purified, cleansed, without blemish, devoid of defilement, supple, ready to act, firm and imperturbable, I bent the mind so that I might discern the passing away and reappearance of beings. With the Deva eye, purified and surpassing the human eye, I saw and I knew beings in course of faring on, beings lowly and exalted, beautiful and ugly, happy and in woe, according to their deeds. And I thought, these worthies were given over to evil practices in deed, word and thought, were revilers of the Aryans, holders of wrong views, men who have acquired this karma from wrong views, and on the breaking up of the body after death, have arisen in the untoward way, the ill way, the abyss, hell. But these good sirs behaved rightly in deed, word and thought, were no revilers of the Aryans, held right views and have acquired this karma therefrom, and on the breaking up of the body after death have arisen in the blissful heaven world. Thus with the Deva eye I saw and knew beings in course of faring on. This Brahmin was the second knowledge attained by me in the second watch of the night. Ignorance being removed, knowledge arose. Darkness being removed, light arose, as I abode strenuous, earnest and resolute. This Brahmin was my second hatching, like a young chick's from the eggshell. With heart thus serene, purified, cleansed, spotless, devoid of defilement, supple, ready to act, firm and imperturbable, I bent the mind so that I might discern the destruction of the asavas. In its full essence I comprehended the thought, this is dukkha. In its full essence I comprehended the thought, this is the origin of dukkha. In its full essence I comprehended the thought, this is the ending of dukkha. In its full essence I comprehended the thought, this is the way leading to the ending of dukkha. In its full essence I comprehended the thought, these are the asavas. In its full essence I comprehended the thought, this is the origin of the asavas. In its full essence I comprehended the thought, this is the ending of the asavas. In its full essence I comprehended the thought, this is the way leading to the ending of the asavas. Knowing this, seeing this, my heart was freed from the asava of sensuality. My heart was freed from the asava of becoming. My heart was freed from the asava of ignorance. In my release there came the knowledge of that release. I knew birth is destroyed, lived is the holy life, done is what must be done. For me there is no more hereafter. This Brahmin was the third knowledge attained by me in the third watch of the night. Ignorance being removed, knowledge arose. Darkness being removed, light arose, as I abode strenuous, earnest and resolute. This Brahmin was my third hatching, like a young chick's from the eggshell. When he had thus spoken, the Brahmin of Varanja said to the Exalted One, Master Gotama is indeed the eldest. Master Gotama is indeed the best. Wonderful, wonderful Master Gotama. Just as one might set upright that which has been overturned, might reveal the concealed, might point out the way to the blind, might bring an oil lamp into the darkness, so that those who had eyes might see the forms about them. Even so has Dhamma been made clear in many a figure by Master Gotama. To Master Gotama I go for refuge, to the Dhamma and to the Sangha. Let Master Gotama accept me as a lay disciple, as one who has found refuge from this day to life's end. That's the end of the sutta. I'd just like to comment a few things about this. Firstly, you notice the Buddha was enlightened at the age of about 35. And at that age, he was comparatively young. There were many Brahmins and external sect renunciants who were much older than the Buddha at that time. And because the Buddha was young compared to them, they expected the Buddha to pay homage to them, respect them, offer them a seat, etc. But the Buddha did none of these, and some of them got annoyed like this Brahmin. But you notice the Buddha said, Brahmin, whom the Tathagata should salute, rise up for, or to whom he should offer a seat, verily his head would split in two. Because of that, the Buddha knew that they did not deserve his respect. So, his paying homage. So he did not salute them, pay homage to them. And then the other thing you notice was the way the Buddha described how he was enlightened. You notice that he said that he attained the jhanas, the four jhanas, one by one. He attained the four jhanas. And using the four jhanas, firstly he recollected the past lives. Without the jhanas, the states of deep concentration, he would not be able to recollect the past lives. So the first one, he recollected his past lives. And when he recollected the past lives, he knew that before, in a previous life, he was a monk, disciple of the Buddha Kassapa. And from the Buddha Kassapa, he learned the Four Noble Truths. So you can imagine, if he had not attained the jhanas and recollected the past lives, all the Dhamma that he had learned before, he could not remember. But because he could remember his past lives, all the Dhamma that he learned before came back to him, all the Four Noble Truths, etc. And then secondly, with the Deva vision, he saw the passing away and re-arising of beings according to karma. And then thirdly, he reflected on the Four Noble Truths that he had learned in his previous life, and then he destroyed the asavas. These are called the three knowledges. So, just now those three were called the three knowledges, te vija. And so you can see that the psychic powers, the Buddha used the psychic powers of recollection of past life and Deva vision, and used them to attain to the third knowledge of the destruction of the asavas, the Four Noble Truths and the destruction of the asavas. So you can see that psychic powers have a use in the holy life. That is why the Buddha actually paid great emphasis on these 6 things that he calls the 6 abhinya, the higher knowledges. The higher knowledges, things like this, recollection of past life, Deva vision, Deva hearing, the ability to read another person's thoughts, and other various psychic powers, like floating in the air, etc. And the last one, the 6th one, is destruction of the asavas. So these you find in the suttas. The Buddha put the 6 knowledges as together usually. In other words, he described the other 5 psychic powers together with the destruction of the asavas in the same category. And you can see from here why to the Buddha they are important, because they are stepping stones to enlightenment. If a person can attain the psychic powers, that means the person's concentration is so deep that the wisdom can come very easily. And when that person uses the psychic powers in the right way, not for showing off, not for becoming famous or anything, but like here, like the Buddha has described how he used the psychic powers in the right way to attain the destruction of the asavas, then they can be seen to be very useful, and they should not be despised at all. You can see from the suttas, they are frequently mentioned by the Buddha. The next sutta is 8.2.12. Once the Exalted One was dwelling in the gable hall in Mahavana near Vesali. Now at that time a great many Lichavi notables were seated assembled in the moat hall, and in many a figure they were speaking in praise of the Buddha, in praise of Dhamma, in praise of the Sangha. And Siha, the general, the disciple of the Nigantas, was seated in that assembly, and he thought, surely the Exalted One must be Arahan, Sammasambuddha. Thus indeed these many notable Lichavis assembled and seated in their moat hall, in many a figure, praise the Buddha, praise Dhamma, praise the Sangha. Now suppose I were to go and see him, the Exalted One, Arahan, Sammasambuddha. I'll just stop here for a moment, just to comment. This moat hall, can't find the word moat in the dictionary, probably something like a town hall. And these Lichavis, it's a race, and they were praising the triple gem. Now this Siha, the general, that means he's a very important man, the general of the army. He was a disciple of the Nigantas. Nigantas are also called the Jains, and the leader is known as Nathaputta, that means son of Natha. Natha was probably his mother. And he's also sometimes known as Mahavira. His real name was probably Mahavira, but sometimes he's also called Nathaputta. And to continue the sutta, then Siha approached the Niganta Nathaputta and said to him, Sir, I wish to go and see the recluse Gotama. And Nathaputta said, Siha, How can you, who believe in action, go and see the recluse Gotama, who affirms the theory of inaction? The recluse Gotama professes the theory of inaction. He teaches the doctrine of inaction, and in that he trains his disciples. Then whatever inclination Siha had to go and see the Exalted One subsided. On a second occasion, the Lichavis were speaking in praise of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. And again Siha told Nataputta of his desire to go and see the Exalted One, and was again dissuaded. On a third occasion, the Lichavis were praising the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha in like manner. And thought Siha, undoubtedly, that Exalted One is Arahant, Sama Sambuddha, and so these Lichavis speak in praise of him, of the Dhamma and the Sangha. What can the Nigantas do to me, whether they are consulted or not? What if I go without the Nigantas' leave and see that Exalted One, Arahant, Sama Sambuddha? So at noon, Siha set out from Vesali with some 500 chariots to see the Exalted One, going by carriage as far as the ground permitted, and then descending therefrom, entered the park on foot. Approaching the Exalted One, he saluted him and sat down at one side. So seated, he said to the Exalted One, Lord, I have heard this. The recluse Gotama affirms the theory of inaction. He teaches the doctrine of inaction, and in that he trains his disciples. Lord, those who speak thus, I presume they report what the Exalted One has said, and do not misrepresent the Exalted One by lying. I presume they set forth a doctrine which conforms to Dhamma, and no one who is a follower of his Dhamma would incur blame for saying this. Lord, I have no wish to accuse the Exalted One. And the Buddha said, there is one way, Siha, in which one might say, if he would speak rightly of me, the recluse Gotama affirms the theory of inaction. He teaches the doctrine of inaction, and in that he trains his disciples. There is one way, Siha, in which one might say, if he would speak rightly of me, the recluse Gotama affirms the theory of action. He teaches the doctrine of action, and in that he trains his disciples. In one way, one might rightly say, the recluse Gotama is an annihilationist. He teaches the doctrine of annihilation, and in that he trains his disciples. Or he feels abhorrence. He teaches the doctrine of abhorrence. He is an abolitionist. He teaches the doctrine of abolition. He is given to mortification. He teaches the doctrine of mortification. He is against rebirth. He teaches the doctrine of preventing rebirth. He has found consolation. He teaches the doctrine of consolation, and in that he trains his disciples. And what, Siha, is the way in which, speaking rightly of me, one would say, the recluse Gotama affirms the theory of inaction. I declare inaction as to misconduct in deed, word, and thought. I proclaim inaction as to all evil and sinful conditions. This is the way, Siha, in which, speaking rightly of me, one would say, the recluse Gotama affirms the theory of inaction. He teaches the doctrine of inaction, and in that way he trains his disciples. In what way would one say, the recluse Gotama affirms the theory of action? I declare action as to good conduct in deed, word, and thought. I proclaim action as to all righteous conditions. This is the way. In what way would one say, the recluse Gotama is an annihilationist? I declare the annihilation of lust, hatred, and delusion. I proclaim the annihilation of all evil and sinful conditions. This is the way. In what way would one say, the recluse Gotama feels abhorrence? I abhor misconduct in deed, word, and thought. I abhor entertaining all evil and sinful conditions. This is the way. In what way would one say, the recluse Gotama is an abolitionist? I preach the doctrine of abolishing lust, hatred, and delusion. I teach the Dhamma of abolishing all evil and sinful conditions. This is the way. In what way would one say, the recluse Gotama is given to mortification? I declare all evil and sinful conditions should be mortified. Yes, misconduct in deed, word, and thought. Moreover, whosoever has abandoned, rooted out, made like palm stumps, caused not to be, so conditioned that they rise not again, evil and sinful conditions, he, I say, is given to mortification. The Tathagata has so done. This is the way. In what way would one say the recluse Gotama is against rebirth? Whosoever has abandoned, cut off at the root, descend into the womb, renewed, becoming and rebirth, he, I say, is against rebirth. The Tathagata has so done. This is the way. And what, Siha, is the rightly of me? One would say, the recluse Gotama has found consolation. He teaches Dhamma for consolation, and with that he trains his disciples. I, Siha, have found consolation by the supreme consolation. I teach Dhamma for consolation, and in that I train my disciples. This is the way, Siha, in which, speaking rightly of me, one would say, the recluse Gotama has found consolation. He teaches Dhamma for consolation, and in that he trains his disciples. And when he had finished speaking, Siha the general said, Wonderful, wonderful Lord, etc. Lord, let the Exalted One accept me as a lay disciple, as one who has found refuge from this day to life's end. And the Buddha said, Make a thorough examination of the matter, Siha. Investigation is profitable to well-known men like yourself. And he said, Lord, I am even better pleased, better gratified by this remark of the Exalted One. Had I been won over as a disciple by some other sect, they would have paraded through the whole of Vesali with banners shouting, Siha the General has joined our discipleship. But the Exalted One merely advises me thus, Examine the matter, Siha, for investigation is profitable to well-known men like yourself. For a second time, Lord, I go to the Exalted One for refuge, to the Dhamma and to the Sangha of monks. Let the Exalted One accept me as a lay disciple, as one who has found a refuge from this day to life's end. And the Buddha said, Your family, Siha, for many a day has been a wellspring to the Nigantas. Wherefore deem it right to give alms to those who approach you. And Siha said, Lord, I am still better pleased, better gratified by this last remark. Lord, I have heard it said, the recluse Gotama asserts thus, Not unto others, but unto me alone should alms be given. Not unto the disciples of others, but unto mine alone should alms be given. For alms given unto me alone are very fruitful, and not so are those given unto others. Alms given unto my disciples alone are very fruitful, and not so are those given unto the disciples of others. But now the Exalted One incites me to give alms among the Nigantas. We shall know what to do when the time arrives. For a third time, Lord, I go to the Exalted One for refuge, to the Dhamma and to the Sangha of monks. Let the Exalted One accept me as a lay disciple from this day to life's end. I'll just stop here for a moment. You notice here that Siha, being a general, was a VIP, a very important person in Vesali. Yet the Buddha asked him to think over carefully when he wanted to become a disciple. Then the Buddha advised him to continue giving alms to the Nigantas. So we can see the compassion and the wisdom of the Buddha. Anyone who is practicing correctly must have the basic humane qualities of goodwill, sympathy or compassion, humility, etc. But if his anger increases, the ego increases, and he does not possess basic humane qualities, he must be on the wrong path. And then the sutta continues. Then the Exalted One preached a graduated discourse to Siha the general, that is to say, on alms giving, the precepts, and on heaven. He set forth the peril, the folly, and the depravity of lusts, and the blessedness of renunciation. And when the Exalted One knew that the heart of Siha the general was clear, malleable, free from hindrance, uplifted and lucid, then he revealed the teaching of Dhamma, which Buddhas alone have won, that is to say, dukkha, its arising, its ending, and the way to the cessation of dukkha. Just as a clean cloth, free of all stain, will take dye perfectly, even so in Siha, the general, seated there arose the spotless, stainless vision of Dhamma, that whatsoever be conditioned by coming to be, all that is subject to ending. I'll stop here for a moment. Here you see it's mentioned in this sutta that the Buddha preached a graduated discourse to the Siha. And these 9 steps, the first one is dana, then sila, then heaven, then the peril, folly and depravity of sensual desire, then renunciation. These are the 5 steps, after which the 4 noble truths. And this particular gradual discourse is not found as such per se in the suttas. It's not given. But if you look through the suttas, in various parts of the suttas, you can find a description of some of these things. And you also notice that when the Buddha had given this gradual discourse to Siha, the general, then it is said that the spotless, stainless vision of Dhamma arose. That means the Siha, the general, attained stream entry, attained path, the first path, became an Arya. And you can see in the suttas and in the Vinaya that almost all of the people who attain the first path, they do so by hearing the Dhamma, understanding. And then the Buddha said they attain stream entry. And the sutta continues. Then Siha, perceiving Dhamma, in possession of Dhamma, discovering Dhamma, penetrating Dhamma, with doubt overcome and uncertainty surpassed, possessed without another's aid of perfect confidence in the word of the teacher, said to the Exalted One, Lord, let the Exalted One with the Sangha of monks accept a meal from me tomorrow. And the Exalted One accepted by silence. That was the normal way. Let's just stop here to comment. That was the normal way. And during the Buddha's time, if the monks and the Buddha and his monks were invited to a meal and they kept quiet, it meant that they had accepted it. I forgot to mention also that in this sutta and the previous one, that when they take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, it's mentioned that they take refuge with the Bhikkhu Sangha. Usually when they take refuge, it's mentioned here, they take refuge in the Bhikkhu Sangha. Then the sutta continues. Then Siha, seeing that the Exalted One had accepted, got up from his seat, saluted the Exalted One and departed by the right. And Siha called the man and said, Go, good man, and find some fresh meat. And when that night was over, having had plenty of hard and soft food prepared in his house, he sent word to the Exalted One that it was time to come. Lord, the time has come, the meal is ready in Siha's house. So the Exalted One, robing himself early in the morning, taking bowl and cloak, went to Siha's house with the Sangha of monks and sat down on the appointed seat. Then many Nigantas went about Vesali, through the highways and byways, from crossroad to crossroad, waving their arms and crying, Today a huge beast has been slain by Siha the general, and a meal has been prepared for the recluse Gotama, and the recluse Gotama is going to eat the meat, knowing that it was meant for him, that the deed was done on his account. Then a man went and whispered in Siha's ear, saying, I say, sir, are you aware that a great many Nigantas go about the streets and crossroads of Vesali, waving their arms, crying in such a manner? And Siha said, Enough, sir. For a long time these worthies have longed to disparage the Buddha, have longed to disparage the Dhamma, have longed to disparage the Sangha. But they do no harm to the Exalted One by their wicked, vain, lying, untruthful slanders. Not for the sake of sustaining life would we intentionally deprive any being of life. Then Siha, the general, with his own hands served and satisfied the Sangha of monks with the Buddha at their head, with plenty of food, both hard and soft. And when the Exalted One had finished eating and had withdrawn his hand from the bowl, Siha sat down at one side. So seated, the Exalted One instructed Siha with Dhamma discourse, stimulated him, roused him, and gladdened him. Then the Exalted One arose from his seat and departed. That's the end of the sutta. This is one of the important suttas to show that the Buddha and his disciples did eat meat. And because the Buddha and his disciples ate meat as compared to some of the external ascetics who were vegetarians, they used this to disparage the Buddha. And you can see from here, they were very angry that one of their chief disciples had crossed over to the Buddha's camp. So when they found that Siha had ordered meat to feed the Buddha, they went around broadcasting that the Buddha was going to eat meat that was purposely killed for him. And that is why you find later, when we come to the Majjhima Nikaya Suttas, there was a physician, a king's physician by the name of Jivaka. In one of the Majjhima Nikaya Suttas, he came to ask the Buddha. He also heard things like this, that the Buddha ate meat that was purposely killed for him. So he asked the Buddha whether it's true. And the Buddha said, no, it's not true. The Buddha said that the Buddha and his monks only ate meat with three conditions. The first one was they did not ask somebody to kill. In other words, the meat was not purposely killed for the Buddha and his disciples. In other words, if they buy it from the market, it's alright. And the second condition, they don't see the killing. The third condition, they don't hear the animal cry as it was being killed. You notice here, the general said, not for the sake of sustaining life would we intentionally deprive any being of life. So in other words, the meat that they cooked was bought from the marketplace that was already slaughtered. The reason for this is that it is almost impossible to cause not to cause indirect killing of animals. Just by existing, we unintentionally cause the killing of other living beings' lives. For example, even if a person is a vegetarian, still for the farmer to grow the vegetables and the fruits, a lot of forests have to be cleared. In that process, many animals are killed. And when the farmer protects his crops, he sprays insecticides and he tills the ground and all that. A lot of worms are killed, a lot of caterpillars, a lot of snails have to be purposely killed, insects, etc., to protect the vegetables and all that. And then, like we want to live in houses, just by the fact that we want to live in houses, many areas, large areas of land have to be cleared to build housing estates. That way we indirectly cause the killing of animals. And then, because we want to use household items also, a lot of land has to be cleared and animals killed. And because we want to use electricity, the government has to make dams to dam up the rivers. And when the rivers are dammed up and the water level rises, a lot of animals are killed in the process. Also, we know, for example, in Malaysia, every day the government employs people to go and shoot stray dogs. Why? To protect us. So, if you allow stray dogs to multiply, then the result is that there will be a lot of disease and it would affect humans. So in the same way, if animals were not slaughtered, you allow them to be freed, then they multiply so fast that somehow they have to be killed. We know, like in Australia, every day thousands and thousands of kangaroos and rabbits are killed because they eat the crops. So if animals are allowed to multiply, they will eat all the crops, and the farmers will also eat them. If everybody became vegetarians, the whole world became vegetarians, still animals would still be killed. The fact that we drive cars is contributing to the killing of animals, countless animals every day. The fact that you drive a car, you're encouraging the car industry to make more cars, and when more cars are made, then more animals are killed. So indirectly, you're also responsible for it. And not only animals, human beings are also killed by cars. In fact, 2,000 human beings are killed by cars every day on the road in this world. So the fact that we drive cars or we sit in cars, we are indirectly causing the killing of human beings and animals on the road, because we encourage the production of more cars every day. So because of that, you can see that killing is something that indirect killing is something that cannot be avoided just because we want to survive. But what is important is that the direct karma of killing should not be on our hands. And the Buddha said, for that, there must be these three conditions. If you want to eat meat, we don't kill, we don't ask somebody to kill, we don't see the killing, and we don't hear the animal cry as it was being killed. And then our hands are in a way free of this killing.